Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening. Hope you guys have had a great day so far and a great start to your work week. In this evening's video, we're going to break down what looks to be an increased threat for multiple days of severe weather starting tomorrow and the next day. So Wednesday and Thursday, I'm expecting some severe weather, but it really gets cranked up for our Friday, potentially some severe weather over the weekend. And then we're watching next Monday and early next week in general, as I really think we have a strong moisture return back into the Gulf states down near Texas, Louisiana, maybe some other surrounding states also. But we're going to break this all down from basically the closest time frame to the furthest time frame. So we're going to start off by talking about tomorrow and then go all the way through about early next week and talk about what we do know. But we are eyeballing Friday as the big time severe weather potential. There's a lot of limiting factors, but there's a lot of factors that point to, hey, this could be a dynamic setup and it could get kind of dangerous for certain areas along this dry line and just east. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you guys got anything I can pray about, definitely put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over them, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. And, I guess I lied to you guys about things slowing down. I guess technically it did for a couple days. But, we are still in severe weather season. Even into May, it starts to shift a little further north into maybe the central plains. And then in June, it starts to move into the northern plains. But it's just how the weather is and the changing of the seasons. It can be very dynamic and switch up very, very quickly, and things can change very quickly forecast-wise. So let's just talk about what we do know. Hopefully things do not materialize, any kind of outbreak or anything, but we are going to talk about what we do know. Tomorrow, there's a marginal risk for a pretty big area, nothing too crazy. You don't have a slight risk. This is for your Wednesday, which is tomorrow. Like I said, this is including Amarillo, the panhandle of the rest of the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, and then sections of western Kansas, even a section of far southeast areas of Colorado, and then areas of eastern and northeastern New Mexico. So we're going to talk a little bit about that day, not stay too long on that. Then there is a severe risk for Thursday. I could see this uptrending to a slight risk for a very small area. As we get into Thursday, we start to really get influenced by this upper trough that has a chance to close into maybe a cutoff low kind of scenario, starts to pull in some rich moisture out the Gulf of Mexico and from the south in general. Dew points start to rise into the 50s, start to sneak a little bit closer to 60. So, the moisture at the surface begins to increase for this Thursday threat, but there's going to be an increased threat for maybe a cap in place. And then Friday, you have an all-out cap, which is that area of stable air just aloft, a few thousand feet up in the air to maybe a mile, mile and a half, just give or take. You never know. Is it just a mile up in the atmosphere? Is maybe a couple miles up in the atmosphere? You just don't know until we really can look at the soundings in place for the day of. So we can only look at these forecasted soundings this far out, but you have that marginal risk for Thursday. Watch out. This could trend into a slight risk. We just have to see what's going to unfold with this. And then we have really the big threat with this, and this is the 15% risk here in Oklahoma, central to eastern areas of Oklahoma, a small section of northern Texas, just north of Dallas. This stops, but this could get extended southward. It could not, but don't focus too much on where this outline is. If you're close to this region of this 15% risk of severe weather, definitely stay tuned to the weather. It's been very active in this part of the country over the last week to 10 days, but this extends all the way through eastern Kansas and then all the way up to what we call the triple point, which is where this low pressure will develop along this closed or just upper trough that develops here, and a piece of energy will swing through. Pieces of energy will swing through definitely as this continues to pivot over the weekend. And I think Saturday will be a severe weather threat also, but there's currently, as of now, no 15% risk up for Saturday, and this is for Friday. So this extends all the way into areas of southern and southeastern Nebraska. Well, there will also be a severe weather threat almost all the way up to Omaha, and it does include Lincoln. So we have to continue to move forward, and as we do, we look at the NAM right here, and we're looking at Wednesday. And moving forward here, we watch, and what we're going to do is just mainly focus on the NAM. We're going to look at the NAM for tomorrow and for Thursday's event. I don't think tomorrow is going to be a big deal. You're going to have some isolated, what we call almost like cold core storms. Dew points are only going to be in the 40s and 50s in this region, but some steep lapse rates in place. like they always are in this area, where you basically have temperatures that rapidly cool. The further up in the atmosphere you get will still promote a convective environment, meaning we'll still have Cape values that reach in this region all the way up to about 500 or 1,000 joules per kilogram. So there's going to be technically some juice to the atmosphere, but definitely be some convective energy that fires up in areas of southeastern Colorado. If y'all do hear my kids in the background, I'm sorry. They're just cutting up and giggling and things like that. So you might hear a faint giggle in the background. It's just my kids having fun this afternoon. But watch out areas of northeastern New Mexico too. Y'all could get some storm action, and then as we're moving into 4, 5, 6 p.m., this could really drift into areas of Oklahoma, the panhandle of Oklahoma, and then the panhandle of Texas. So we just watch out. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal at all, but some storms could certainly fire in this area, but they're going to be very isolated, and I think the biggest threat with these will be damaging winds and small hail for sure. And then we're going to jump over to Thursday actually, and as we're getting into Thursday morning, this piece of energy will try to kind of drift into further areas of eastern Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas, and there could be a rumble of thunder in this area overnight tomorrow night to tomorrow into Thursday morning. But then, you could have some more rain in Missouri for tomorrow afternoon, but they're really not thinking this is going to be a real big severity level to this convection in these storms. Just some heavy rain, some storm action in Missouri, I really think, in the middle of the state, anywhere from west to east, working from the earliest part of the day to the latest part of the day as you're getting into eastern sections of Missouri for Thursday afternoon. But then you watch for any convection that pops up in this area. It's going to be very hard to see, but there's some isolated storms that pop up down here where you have a marginal risk right in this section right here. There's going to be some storm action that potentially gets going in this portion of Texas, and then in this portion right here of southwestern Oklahoma. Any storms that do form could be intense, and they will be supercell in nature as moisture is gradually returning in this area ahead of a digging trough, upper trough that's starting to dig down here, and it's about to eject as we get into Friday, speaking in future tense here. But as we're getting into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, these cells right here will have a chance to be severe. If they form, there's going to be a cap in place, that area of a stable air aloft that prevents the updrafts from really getting going here. But any storms that do form in this area, there could be an isolated tornado threat. I expect a 2% risk of a tornado threat to get introduced tomorrow for this outlook for your Thursday. We'll see how that goes. And then I really think there will be a damaging wind and hail threat. It just depends on where these storms fire. But some storms will fire in this area of Oklahoma and Texas as we get into Thursday. But really going forward, we're not in short-range guidance for Friday. We're not. We can't really see much for Friday. All we can do is kind of look at the dynamics in place. But let me show you this really quick. Moisture return. There's not a lot of moisture. There's going to be storms that fire in areas of Colorado and then the panhandle of Texas, potentially the panhandle of Oklahoma, and areas of New Mexico. But look at the dew points in this area, only in the 40s and 50s. The only reason you're seeing pockets of 50s is that's where moisture is actually at, where these storms form. But there's not going to be much in the way of low-level moisture at all. Just dew points in the 40s, but you're going to have that steep lapse rates, which when the temperatures dynamically cool, the further you get up in the atmosphere, it causes CAPE, which is that storm energy you need for any storms to develop. So you're still going to have some energy to get going here. But as we're getting into Thursday morning, look at the dew points rising well into the 50s, even some isolated 60s, all the way up into southern areas of Nebraska. This continues, and this is when our broad moist sector begins to build in this area. So you're going to have dew points rising into the 60s where these supercells can form Thursday. So that's when we watch out, and then the dry line begins to set up ahead of a trough ejection across the middle of the country. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's get Pivotal a second to pull up. So as we're getting into Friday, what we do know, these are dew points you're looking at right now. These are all this desert southwest dry air pumping into areas of the middle of the country in the plains here. But this is a big ejection of moist air, dew points rising well into the 60s. And then as we're getting into Friday morning, Friday afternoon, a dry line sets up where on one side you got dew points well down into the 20s, but on the eastern side of this dry line, you have moist dew points well into the 60s, rising here just along this dry line. What this causes is a spike in CAPE. So you're going to have CAPE values that are going to spike in response to this low level moisture. And with this, steep lapse rates also. So we'll stop this for about Friday late afternoon, evening. Look at this intense dry line with this low pressure right here. Will this be a closed off low? We're just not quite sure, but don't focus too much on that. Look at this dew points on the GFS. Well into this is just very dry air in the panhandle of Oklahoma, and then areas of the panhandle of Texas. And then it matches up. A dynamic gradient matches up. It's what we call the dry line with this moist air right here. This causes forcing, it causes storm development in this region. So dew points are going to rise. I mean, Oklahoma City, for your Friday afternoon, evening, it is going to be very, very moist in this area. Tulsa, and then eastern areas of Kansas, a broad and deep moisture field rising all the way up into southeastern areas of Nebraska. Watch out the triple point right here. So we know this is going to be intact. What we also do know is, in response to all that moisture that's building into the region, you're going to have a spike in CAPE values around Friday afternoon. So you got CAPE values reaching well over 3,000, surface CAPE, the 3,500 joules per kilogram. So the energy is going to be there on the surface, it is, and above that stable area of air in the atmosphere that we call a cap. And in fact, I'll put a sounding here, you know, well north of probably Oklahoma City here, and you see this. These are the temperatures right here: 79, 80 degrees at the surface. You see how they drop and then they rise in this area right here. This rising is that area of warm, stable air. So you have the CAPE building in this region, even the surface CAPE at the surface, and then you have CAPE aloft. But you know, when the updrafts are trying to form, they hit this stable area and you hit this stable area of air in the atmosphere, so it prevents updrafts from really getting going. That's why, you know, you click a sounding in the basically in the high-end CAPE area, and you're thinking, well, there's a high level of energy in the air, there's a high level of convective energy, but there's only a marginal tornado threat. Well, that's because the sounding sees that CAPE and it says, hey, you know, even though you have all this dynamics in place, dew points almost hitting 70 degrees, surface heating almost all the way up to 80, ample amount of shear in place, you have this stout capping in place, this stable air, you know, probably 7, 8, 9,000 feet up in the air, give or take, about well over a mile in the atmosphere, that prevents updrafts from really exploding and taking advantage of all this energy aloft that's, you know, several 10, 15,000 feet up in the air. It just can't take advantage of it. So the cap will likely break in areas, but when will it break? So it's a big question here, but there's a lot of energy for this to tap into if it does. For you folks in, you know, eastern Kansas, central and eastern areas of Oklahoma, and then all the way up here in southeastern areas of Nebraska. A lot of energy there for this to kick into. One thing I don't show often, which I should, is the energy helicity index. This combines that relative helicity mixed in with the CAPE value, so it combines it together to really show you where supercells can get going here. This is really a good indicator of supercells and any kind of rotation in the lower levels of the atmosphere here, which, you know, rotation, you think of tornadoes, right? Which that's what it means. So we're going into Friday afternoon, and look how this maximizes for your Friday evening. Once you get values around 2 to 3 in the energy helicity index, and that begins to get supportive for supercell development. We'll check all along this dry line and just east of it. You have values reaching well above 8 to 9, even pushing 10 the areas. So you have all this potential, that P word, that potential, but will it fire? It's kind of like what happened last week with that cap in place. Will it fire? If it does, all hazards are on the table. Destructive tornadoes, hail, damaging winds, definitely large hail. So we got to watch Friday. We really do. Moving forward here, really what's in response to this, what's going on with this, elevated, term of severe weather coming up is this upper trough that's going to dig right here. Will it get closed off? The GFS shows that it's likely to do so. As it's kind of moving into the area, it's pulling these high-end dew points all the way up here. A broad, moist sector rises all the way into Nebraska. This comes down, starts to eject across the country very slowly. At the same time, you basically have a moving dry line or a moving moist sector that moves, into areas of in the Ohio Valley. With a surface low all the way up here, you're probably going to have a severe weather threat probably entering the Ohio Valley as you're getting into Saturday. So that'll be another topic that we have to really try to figure out what's going to happen. This moves out the picture. There probably could be a severe weather threat Sunday also. And then another upper trough moves into the region. This really yanks in a lot of moisture into areas of Texas and Louisiana. And I'm about to show you what I'm talking about here. Look at this. As we're moving forward here, look as we get into even Sunday, you're already having the humidity is really moving into this area to start the first day of May. You're going to feel it. It's going to feel like the first day of May. Heck, it's going to feel like June down here in Texas with dew points Sunday well into the 70s for a widespread area of Arkansas, areas of southern Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. It is going to be very moist in this area. And I think for Sunday into Monday, it's going to set the stage for some disruptive potential for some nasty, severe storms here in Texas. Cape values well into the 70s. To me, this looks like a big time, what we call a Cape bomb, where you're going to have a massive amount of Cape in response to these elevated dew points in this area, this big time moist return out the Gulf. So you look at the Cape for that time frame, and like I said, I mean, you look at it, look at the Cape as we're getting into Sunday. You're starting to get values reaching well over 2,000 joules per kilogram at the surface, but then you get into Monday, and look around Dallas-Fort Worth. Cape values reaching well over 4,000 joules per kilogram. That is a lot of storm energy for this to work with. So this, to me, this looks like a big time health threat. But you know, what other kinematics do you have in place to make this a tornado threat? So I really think severe weather is going to be the dominant topic. At least we had a break for about 1 to 2 days, but really I wouldn't even call it a break because we've had severe weather the last few days, even though it hasn't been as intense. But sorry guys, sorry a lot again. How about for now on, I won't tell you that the weather is going to be calm, because it seems like it just can't possibly do that as of late. But hopefully we'll get a period of really calm weather before hurricane season kicks up, and we'll see how that goes. But anyways, I'll keep y'all updated with this. God bless all y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll talk to y'all in the morning.